Tycoon humiliated his wife for not having children. Years later, his sister-in-law saw her at the wedding with twins. Park Hyun-woo, a man of power and influence, stood in his office, his gaze fixed on the skyline that stretched before him. He had built an empire from the ground up, everything he had ever wanted within his reach. His life, outwardly, was a symbol of success, an aspiration for many. But in the solitude of his grand office, he wasn't the man he pretended to be. He was just a man who couldn't fill the void inside him, a man whose obsession with perfection had slowly consumed everything that mattered. Lee So-young, his wife, had been by his side since their early days together, before the wealth, before the fame. They had met when they were both younger, full of dreams and ambition, both striving to carve out their place in the world. But the years had passed, and with them, the dream they once shared had slowly dissolved into something far more complicated. The laughter, the love, the connection, they were all now distant memories. So-young stood in front of a mirror in their bedroom, adjusting the hem of her dress, her fingers trembling slightly as she smoothed down the fabric. She didn't need to look at herself to know that she looked beautiful, but it didn't matter. What mattered was what her husband thought. What mattered was his approval, his praise. She wanted him to see her, to acknowledge her, to love her. But he hadn't looked at her like that in so long. She turned away from the mirror, feeling the weight of the silence around her. The mansion, with all its grandeur, felt suffocating. She walked down the long hallway, her footsteps echoing through the empty space, and entered the living room where Hyun-woo was sitting, reading a newspaper, his eyes scanning the pages with the kind of intensity that made him appear unreachable. He didn't even look up as she entered. So-young, did you finish the paperwork for the meeting? His voice was distant, almost cold, as if she were a mere assistant rather than his wife. She stood there for a moment, unsure of what to say. She could feel the sting of his indifference, and yet, she couldn't find the courage to voice the pain she felt. Instead, she nodded. Yes, it's done. I also arranged the dinner with the investors for next week. Hyun-woo grunted in acknowledgement, his attention never leaving the paper. So-young stood frozen for a few more seconds, her heart sinking as she realized that the man she had once loved with all her heart was now just a stranger to her. The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the silence that followed. So-young's mind raced, but there was no use. She had tried everything she could think of to bridge the gap between them, to get his attention, his love, but nothing ever worked. No matter how much she tried, how much she gave, he remained distant, a man who saw her not as a partner, but as an accessory who couldn't even do the one thing he wanted the most, give him a child. Her chest tightened as she remembered the last argument they had. It had been months ago, but the words Hyun-woo had spoken still echoed in her mind, sharp and unforgiving. You can't even give me a child, So-young. What good are you to me? His words had sliced through her like a blade, each one cutting deeper than the last. I need an heir, someone to carry on my legacy. And you're just broken. The words had come out so easily, as if they meant nothing to him, but they had shattered her. Every hope, every dream she had for their future, had been shattered in that moment. She had stood there, her heart pounding in her chest, as she watched him walk away, leaving her to pick up the pieces of herself that he had so carelessly thrown aside. Hyun-woo, she whispered softly, almost to herself. Why don't you see me anymore? He didn't answer. He never did. As the days went by, So-young's sadness deepened. It wasn't just the infertility, though that was part of it. It was the realization that the man she had given everything to had stopped seeing her, stopped caring for her, stopped loving her. She had once been the center of his world, the woman he had chosen to share his life with. Now, she was just another fixture in the background, a woman he had once loved but now regarded with disdain. One evening, as she sat alone in the living room, the doorbell rang. It was unusual for anyone to visit at this hour, and she hesitated before walking to the door. She opened it to find her sister-in-law, Jumi, standing there, her eyes filled with concern. Are you okay? Jumi asked, her voice soft but urgent. She stepped inside without waiting for an answer, her eyes quickly scanning the room as if searching for something. So-young forced a smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine, just a little tired." Jumi didn't believe her, of course. She never did. The two sisters-in-law had always shared a special bond, one that Hyun-woo had never truly understood. Jumi had always been the one person who saw So-young for who she really was, beyond the title of wife, beyond the role she was forced to play. "I know you're not fine," Jumi said gently, sitting beside her. "You've been avoiding me, So-young. What's going on?" So-young took a deep breath, her eyes welling up with tears. She had been holding everything inside for so long, and now, with Jumi sitting beside her, she couldn't stop the flood of emotions that poured out. "I don't know what to do anymore, Jumi," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I've tried everything. I've given him everything. But I can't give him a child. And now he looks at me like I'm nothing." Jumi's hand found hers. A simple gesture, but it was enough to make So-young feel less alone. "You're not nothing," Jumi said fiercely. "You are more than enough. Don't let him make you believe otherwise. You deserve more than this." But as comforting as Jumi's words were, they couldn't erase the pain in So-young's heart. Hyun-woo's words, his indifference, his cruelty, they were all still there, like a weight that pressed down on her chest, suffocating her. She was still the woman he had once loved, but now, she was a woman who had been forgotten, a woman who had become invisible in her own marriage. And in that moment, So-young realized that she couldn't keep living like this. She couldn't keep giving pieces of herself to a man who didn't see her, who didn't care. She deserved more. She needed to find a way to break free from the chains that held her down. But for now, all she could do was sit in the darkness of her own thoughts, wondering if she would ever be enough for the man she had once called her husband. Você diz. Certo, agora tu como narrador e storyteller desenvolva a história sem marcos com o nome de cada tópico que for desenvolve. Me conte sobre o tópico tu com dialogo como su faço espectador. Sempre lembrando de desenvolver com muita emoção. Com muitos sentimentos de forma que a estrutura de narrativa utiliza uma linha temporal linear de modo o espectador sentir o que o personagem está sentindo amigos. Com 6.000 characters o chat GPT diz. The days dragged on like a never-ending sea of gray, and So-young felt herself sinking deeper into a place she wasn't sure she could escape. The mansion, which once felt like a home filled with warmth and laughter, now felt more like a cold, lifeless museum where memories of better days gathered dust in forgotten corners. The windows were always closed, the curtains always drawn, as though the outside world no longer mattered to her. Her marriage, once the center of her existence, was now just a shadow that haunted her every waking moment. She could hear Hyun-woo's footsteps echoing through the halls as he came and went. But he wasn't coming to her anymore. He wasn't looking for her. His presence in the house had become nothing more than a formality, like the passing of the hours. His mind was occupied elsewhere, on business, on his new interests, on the young woman at his office who seemed to take up more of his attention than his wife ever had. So-young sat in front of the vanity, her fingers running through her hair absently. Her reflection stared back at her with hollow eyes, and she barely recognized the woman who looked so fragile, so broken. She could see the trace of tears that had dried on her cheeks from the night before, the ones she had shed in silence, long after Hyun-woo had gone to bed. She felt as though she was disappearing, losing herself piece by piece. The house was quiet, too quiet. The only sound was the ticking of the old clock in the hallway, a constant reminder of how much time had passed and how little had changed. "Hyun-woo," she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible. She hadn't called out to him in weeks. He hadn't asked for her. He hadn't needed her. But there was something about the emptiness that hurt her more than his indifference. It was the silence, the way he refused to even acknowledge her presence, as if she had become a mere object in his life, something to be overlooked, ignored, forgotten. Just then, the door creaked open, and Hyun-woo walked in without a word. He didn't even glance at her as he entered, his focus fixed on his phone, his mind already elsewhere. "So-young," he said, his voice curt, almost dismissive. I need you to organize the charity event for next week. Make sure everything is set. I don't have time for the details. So-young looked up at him, trying to hold back the flood of emotions threatening to break free. She had spent so many years trying to please him, to be everything he wanted, but it had never been enough. She had hoped that one day, he would see her, really see her, and realize how much she had sacrificed for their life together. But that day never came. She opened her mouth, but the words caught in her throat. Hyun-woo, she started, her voice trembling. Don't you even care about us? About what we're becoming? He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he kept typing on his phone, his brow furrowed in concentration. She had asked this question so many times before, and every time, she was met with the same cold indifference. But today something inside her snapped. She stood up from the vanity, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Why do you treat me like this? She demanded, her voice rising in frustration. Why have you stopped seeing me, Hyun-woo? What happened to the man I married? What happened to us? His eyes flicked up from the phone, his expression cold, almost irritated. He let out a heavy sigh, as though her pain was nothing more than an inconvenience. I don't have time for this right now, So-young, he said, his words clipped. I'm busy with more important things. I've told you before we need to focus on the future, our future, but you're too obsessed with these feelings. You need to understand what matters. The words hit her like a slap in the face. Feelings? She repeated, the hurt evident in her voice. Is that all I am to you now? Just a woman with feelings? A burden you can't be bothered to carry? She could see it in his eyes now, the way he was shutting her out. He was done with her. He was already thinking of a life without her, of a future with someone else. She knew it. She could feel it in the air between them, thick with the weight of unspoken truths. I've been trying, she whispered, almost pleading. I've been trying so hard, Hyun-woo, to make this work, to be everything you need me to be, but I can't do it anymore. I can't be the perfect wife, the perfect woman, if you're not even trying. He looked at her for a moment, his eyes cold and distant. Then, without a word, he turned and walked out of the room, leaving her standing there, heartbroken and alone. For a long time, So-young didn't move. She stood there, in the silence, letting his words echo in her mind. She had always believed that love could fix things, that if she just tried harder, things would get better. But now, she understood that she had been fooling herself all along. Hyun-woo didn't love her anymore. He didn't even like her. She was just a part of his life, a part of his world that he had grown tired of. The tears that she had held back for so long finally spilled over. But this time, she didn't try to hide them. She let them fall freely, the weight of everything she had been carrying crashing down on her. The pain was unbearable, but it was also freeing. For the first time in years, So-young allowed herself to feel, to really feel. But even as the tears fell, a small part of her, deep inside, knew that this was the beginning of something else. She wasn't sure what that something was, but she knew it was time to stop waiting for Hyun-woo to change. It was time to change for herself. She couldn't help but replay the argument over and over in her mind, the coldness in his voice, the sharpness of his words. But what hurt the most was not his cruelty. It was the realization that she had become invisible to him, a mere decoration, something to fill the space beside him, but never truly seen. Then, one morning, something unexpected happened. So-young had been feeling unwell for several days, her stomach unsettled, her head dizzy. At first, she attributed it to the stress and emotional toll her marriage had taken on her. But as the symptoms lingered, she began to suspect something else, something she dared not admit to herself. She found herself in the bathroom, staring at the small, white stick in her hand. The two pink lines were undeniable. She was pregnant. A rush of emotions flooded her. Shock, fear, disbelief. It was impossible. She had been told for years that she couldn't have children. The doctors had explained the reasons. the biological barriers that had kept her from fulfilling the one thing Hyunwoo desired above all else. So why now? How? It didn't make sense. But the evidence was there in her trembling hands. Her heart raced. She could feel the weight of the secret already forming, heavy and unrelenting. What would she do? What would Hyunwoo say? She thought about the cruel words he had spoken to her, the way he had belittled her for not bearing his child. Would this change anything? Or would he dismiss it, too, as something insignificant? A temporary distraction from his perfect, polished world. So-young sat on the edge of the bathtub, her thoughts spiraling. There was no easy answer, no simple path ahead. She had longed for a child, but not like this. Not under these circumstances. Not when her marriage was hanging by a thread. She couldn't ignore the reality that this child, this miracle, could be the very thing that tore them apart. The phone in her pocket buzzed, snapping her from her thoughts. It was a message from Jumi. "I'm coming over. We need to talk." Jumi had been So-young's rock through all of this, but even her sister-in-law couldn't prepare her for what was about to happen. Jumi had always suspected something wasn't right in her sister's marriage. She had been there when Hyunwoo had said those cruel words, seen the hurt in So-young's eyes when she was ignored, belittled, and neglected. So when she received the message from So-young, she didn't hesitate to come over, knowing something had changed, something big was coming. So-young had to decide. She couldn't keep this secret forever. But what was she to do? How could she bring a child into a world where she didn't even have a place anymore? When Jumi arrived, she immediately saw the exhaustion on So-young's face, the way her sister-in-law seemed to shrink in on herself. So-young had never been the type to break easily, but now she looked completely shattered. "I know something's wrong," Jumi said, her voice calm but urgent. "What happened, So-young? You're not the same." So-young hesitated for a moment, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. She had always been able to confide in Jumi, but this was different. This was a secret that could change everything. "I'm pregnant," So-young whispered, her voice barely audible. Jumi's eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat. She wasn't expecting this, not in the way So-young had been hoping. "What?" she asked, stepping closer to her sister-in-law. "But you've been told you couldn't have children." "I know," So-young replied, tears streaming down her face now. "I didn't expect it either, but it's real. I saw the test, and I don't know what to do with it." Jumi's hands reached out, pulling So-young into an embrace. She didn't say anything at first, just held her, letting the weight of the moment settle in the air. They both knew how much this meant, how much was at stake. "So, what will you do?" Jumi finally asked, her voice gentle but filled with concern. So-young pulled away slightly, wiping her tears. "I don't know. Hyunwoo. He doesn't even care anymore. I'm afraid this will push him even further away." Jumi's face softened with compassion. "You don't know that for sure. Maybe this will change things." But So-young shook her head, her lips trembling. "He doesn't love me anymore. Not the way he should. This child, it's the last thing he ever wanted. I'm scared, Jumi. Scared of what this means for me, for the baby. Scared that I've already lost everything." Jumi's heart broke for her. "So-young, you haven't lost everything. This child, this is a part of you, part of what you deserve. Don't let him take that away from you. No matter what happens with Hyunwoo, you have to fight for what's yours." So-young nodded, but her mind was still reeling, her emotions raw. She felt torn in two, torn between the hope that this child could bring some kind of redemption, some kind of miracle, and the fear that it would be the final nail in the coffin of her already broken marriage. As the hours passed, So-young felt a sense of paralysis, as though she were standing at the edge of a cliff, unsure whether to take the leap or turn back. Every path seemed uncertain. If she told Hyunwoo, what would he do? Would he turn his back on her completely? Or would this be the beginning of something new? Could he love a child that wasn't the heir he had always envisioned? The suspense was unbearable. She knew the answer lay somewhere within herself, but the fear of what would happen next kept her from reaching it. She stared at her reflection once more, but this time, something was different. The woman in the mirror was not the broken, invisible figure she had been. No, she was something more, something stronger. And maybe, just maybe, this child would be the catalyst for a change she never thought possible. Hyun-woo's obsession with his empire consumed him. Meetings stretched late into the night, phone calls filled his pockets, and decisions that could make or break companies kept his mind racing. But beneath the surface, there was something more troubling. His eyes, once vibrant and sharp, now held a restless emptiness, a desperation that he refused to acknowledge. His refuge became his office and, increasingly, the company of a woman younger, ambitious, and eager, his secretary Min-ji. So-young noticed the change immediately. The way Hyun-woo would disappear for hours, the way his phone lit up with messages that weren't meant for her. It was a slow, painful realization that the man she loved was slipping through her fingers, drawn to someone else's warmth while her own heart ached in silence. One evening, So-young stood in the hallway outside Hyun-woo's office. The door was ajar, and she could hear the soft murmur of voices. Curiosity mingled with dread as she approached, heart pounding in her chest. She could just make out the words. "I don't want to lose you." Min-ji's voice trembled slightly, pleading. Hyun-woo sighed, heavy and weary. "You're the only one who understands me now, So-young. She's a burden. She can't give me what I need." The words stabbed So-young's heart, raw and unforgiving. "Is that why you pushed her away?" Min-ji asked softly. "Because she wasn't enough?" Hyun-woo's reply was cold, without remorse. "Yes, she was never enough." So-young's breath caught, and tears pricked her eyes. The door creaked, and she realized she had been heard. Hyun-woo looked up, his face registering shock and a flicker of guilt that quickly vanished. "So-young," he said, voice strained, "this isn't your business." But it was her business. It was all her business now. She swallowed the lump in her throat and stood tall despite the pain. "You don't get to say that anymore," she whispered, voice trembling but resolute. "You've been pushing me away, tearing down everything we built. I'm not invisible, Hyun-woo. I'm still here." He rose, anger flashing in his eyes. "You failed me. You never gave me what I wanted. I married you for a family, for an heir, and you couldn't even do that." The words hit her like a storm, but instead of crumbling, So-young found strength she didn't know she had. She took a slow breath, steadying herself. "I might not be what you wanted, Hyun-woo," she said quietly, "but I'm more than your disappointment. I'm going to have our children, and they will be loved, whether you choose to be part of their lives or not." His face twisted with disbelief. "You're lying. You can't be pregnant. It's impossible." So-young's hand instinctively went to her stomach, where the secret she had carried so long lived and grew. "I'm not lying." Hyun-woo's gaze faltered for the briefest moment, confusion flickering in his eyes before pride and denial took over again. "You think this changes anything? That a miracle like this will fix us?" His voice was bitter. "You think I'll stay when everything's falling apart?" The silence that followed was thick, almost suffocating. So-young felt the tears she had tried to hold back slipping free, but this time, they weren't tears of despair. They were tears of defiance, of a woman who refused to be broken. "I don't know what will happen," she admitted softly, "but I know I won't wait for you to decide whether I deserve happiness." Hyun-woo looked away, his jaw clenched tight as if struggling with something inside. The weight of her words lingered between them, unspoken truths hanging heavy in the air. Days later, So-young found herself alone in the garden, the cool breeze brushing against her face. Her mind wandered to the future, uncertain, terrifying, but hers to claim. She felt the life growing inside her, a reminder that hope could still bloom in the darkest of places. Suddenly, the house's silence was broken by footsteps behind her. She turned to see Jumi approaching, her face filled with concern and quiet strength. "How are you holding up?" Jumi asked softly. So-young forced a small smile. "Some days better than others." Jumi nodded. "You're stronger than you realize." They sat together beneath the shade of the cherry blossoms, the soft petals drifting down like fragile hopes. Jumi took So-young's hands in hers. "I want to help you," Jumi said firmly. "Whatever you need. You don't have to face this alone." For the first time in a long while, So-young felt a flicker of warmth. Maybe she wasn't alone. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the garden, So-young couldn't shake the feeling that the biggest challenge was still ahead, facing Hyun-woo's cold indifference and the uncertain future their unborn children would face. One evening, as twilight deepened and the mansion's grand halls were swallowed by shadows, Hyun-woo returned home later than usual. The air between them was thick with unspoken truths, and So-young's heart pounded with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. Would this be the night he finally acknowledged her? Would he see the life growing inside her and recognize the woman he had cast aside? Hyun-woo entered the room without a word, his eyes tired but sharp, scanning the space as if searching for something to anchor himself. So-young watched him from the doorway, gathering her courage. This was the moment she had been waiting for, dreading and longing for in equal measure. "Hyun-woo," she said softly, her voice trembling but steady. "We need to talk." He didn't respond immediately, but when he did, his voice was low and weary. "What is there to say, So-young? We've been dancing around this for too long." She took a step closer, her gaze unwavering. "I'm pregnant, with twins." His expression flickered, a brief glimpse of something raw and unsettled surfacing beneath his usual cold exterior. "Twins?" he echoed, disbelief mingling with something she couldn't quite read. Was it hope? Fear? Regret? "Yes," she whispered, "and I'm scared. Scared of what this means for us, for the future." Hyun-woo's jaw tightened, and he paced the length of the room, running a hand through his hair. The man she had known, the man who had once vowed to protect and cherish her, seemed lost in a storm of conflicting emotions. "So much has changed," he finally said, voice heavy. "I don't know if I can be the man you need me to be." So-young's chest tightened with a mixture of pain and determination. "You don't have to be perfect, Hyun-woo. I don't want perfect. I want honesty. I want to know that we're in this together." He stopped, turning to face her fully. The vulnerability in his eyes was almost unbearable to witness. "I've made mistakes," he admitted. "I've been cruel and selfish. But this changes everything. Maybe I've been blind to what's truly important." Tears welled in So-young's eyes as relief and hope washed over her. "It's not too late, Hyun-woo. We can still build a future. For us, for our children." For a long moment, they stood there, two souls suspended between the past and an uncertain tomorrow. The silence was no longer heavy with pain, but charged with possibility. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, breaking the fragile peace. Jumi entered, her presence a steady anchor amid the emotional tempest. "I heard," she said softly, smiling gently at both of them, "and I'm here for whatever comes next." The three of them sat together, the room filled with a quiet sense of unity and tentative hope. Outside, the world continued its relentless march forward, but inside, a new chapter was beginning, one forged through pain, forgiveness, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Yet, beneath the surface, unanswered questions lingered like shadows waiting to emerge. What challenges lay ahead? Could Hyun-woo truly change? Would their love be enough to overcome the scars of the past? In the days that followed, a subtle but profound shift began to take hold within her. The pain of rejection and humiliation that had once consumed her was slowly transforming into something stronger. A resilience born from the realization that her worth was not tied to anyone's approval. She was becoming someone who could stand on her own, who could face whatever the future held with courage. Jumi had been her steadfast companion through it all, a quiet presence who never asked questions she wasn't ready to answer and never judged the tears that sometimes spilled unbidden. One afternoon, as they sat together in the small garden behind the mansion, Jumi reached out and took So-young's hand. "You're changing," she said softly, a knowing smile playing on her lips. "I see it in the way you hold yourself now, like you're reclaiming a part of yourself that was lost." So-young looked down, the words stirring emotions too complex to name. "It's hard," she admitted. "Sometimes I still feel so small, so invisible. But I'm learning to fight for myself." Jumi squeezed her hand gently. "That fight is what will carry you through. You don't need anyone to define who you are. You already know." The strength of Jumi's words settled deep in So-young's heart, nurturing a fragile hope. She had spent years trying to be what Hyunwoo wanted, a perfect wife, a flawless partner. Now, she was beginning to understand that her true power lay in embracing who she really was, flaws and all. But even as she grew stronger, the world around her remained uncertain. Hyunwoo's absence was felt more keenly now, a reminder that the man she once loved was still a stranger to her. His coldness, his rejection, still echoed in the halls of their home, a constant reminder of the battle she had yet to win. One evening, as twilight wrapped the mansion in a shroud of deep blue, So-young found herself standing before the grand mirror in their bedroom. Her reflection was no longer the broken woman she had been, but someone poised on the edge of transformation, a woman ready to face whatever lay ahead. The silence was broken by the soft click of the door opening. Hyunwoo stepped inside, his expression unreadable. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, two souls tangled in a web of regret and longing. "So-young," he began, his voice tentative, almost afraid. "I've been a fool. I didn't see what I had until it was slipping through my fingers." She met his gaze steadily, the fire of her newfound strength burning bright. "It's not just about what you had or lost, Hyunwoo. It's about what we can still build. If you're willing." His shoulders sagged with the weight of his own remorse. "I want to be better, for you, for the children, but I don't know if I can undo the damage I've done." "You can try," she said softly. "That's all I ask." As they stood there, the fragile thread of hope between them began to weave a new story, one of forgiveness, redemption, and the possibility of healing wounds thought permanent. Yet, beneath the surface, the question lingered, a whisper of uncertainty. Would Hyunwoo's change be enough, or would the past shadows pull them back into the darkness? Tonight was the night Hyunwoo was to wed Minji. The announcement had shocked many, but no one more than So-young, who stood quietly by the window, her silhouette framed by the fading light. Her hands rested gently on her belly, the twins growing inside her, silent witnesses to a life that had blossomed despite everything. The guests had gathered, their murmurs and whispers filling the room, but So-young felt a calmness settle over her. It was strange, this sense of peace amid chaos. She knew what tonight represented, a final severing of the bond she and Hyunwoo had once shared. Yet, she also understood that life, unpredictable and relentless, had a way of rewriting even the darkest of stories. Jumi approached her, her eyes scanning the room with a mixture of concern and fierce protectiveness. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. So-young nodded, her gaze unwavering. "I have to be." As the music swelled and the guests turned their attention to the entrance, the doors opened to reveal Hyunwoo, handsome and impeccably dressed, but with a haunted look that betrayed his carefully constructed facade. Minji followed, radiant and smiling, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. But then, something unexpected happened. From across the room, Jumi's voice cut through the chatter, clear and commanding. "So-young is here." All eyes turned, and whispers rippled through the crowd like a sudden gust of wind. The air shifted as So-young stepped forward, her head held high, the quiet strength in her eyes commanding attention. Hyunwoo's face paled as he saw her. Not the broken woman he had cast aside, but a radiant figure, glowing with the light of impending motherhood. The twins inside her moved, as if sensing the moment, and So-young's fingers instinctively brushed her belly. Minji's smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of unease. She looked at Hyunwoo, searching for some sign of reassurance, but found only confusion and regret. "So-young?" Hyunwoo finally breathed, his voice a mixture of disbelief and something softer, almost pained. She met his gaze steadily. "I'm here, Hyunwoo, with our children, and I want you to see me, truly see me, before you make any more decisions." The room held its breath as So-young's words hung in the air. The tension was palpable, a storm waiting to break. Jumi stepped beside So-young, her presence a shield and a statement. "She's not alone," Jumi said firmly. "We all see her strength, the courage it took to stand here today." Hyunwoo's hands trembled slightly, the weight of his past mistakes pressing down on him like a suffocating fog. For the first time, he felt the full impact of what he had lost. The wife he had scorned, the family he had abandoned. But the question lingered in the air, heavy and unresolved. Could he find a way back? Could the man who had once humiliated his wife find the humility to ask for forgiveness? Would the life growing inside So-young be the key to healing the wounds of the past? As the guests looked on, the night stretched ahead, uncertain, filled with promise and peril. Min-ji, standing beside him, glanced nervously at So-young. Her smile had faded, replaced by a flicker of doubt. "Hyun-woo," she whispered urgently, "this isn't the time for this. Please." But Hyun-woo barely heard her. His gaze remained fixed on So-young, the woman he had once loved and cruelly cast aside. The twins growing inside her were a silent testament to the family he had abandoned, the legacy he had tried to ignore. So-young's voice rang clear through the room, steady and filled with emotion. "Hyun-woo, years ago, you humiliated me for not having children. You made me feel worthless, like I was failing you and our family. But here I am with twins, our children. And I am proud, because they are a part of me, and they will be loved, with or without you." A heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the soft gasps and murmurs of the guests. Hyun-woo's chest tightened, and a torrent of emotions surged through him. Shame, regret, love, and something deeper, more painful, fear. Fear that he had lost everything that truly mattered. He took a hesitant step forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "So-young, I was wrong. I was cruel. I never realized how much I was hurting you until now." Tears welled in So-young's eyes, but she held her ground, her voice unwavering. "Words aren't enough, Hyun-woo. Actions are what matter. Can you be the father our children deserve? Can you be the man I believed you could be?" Hyun-woo's eyes searched hers, desperate for forgiveness, for a chance to make things right. "I want to try. For you, for the babies. I want to rebuild what I've broken." Jumi stepped forward, her voice firm yet compassionate. "It won't be easy, Hyun-woo. Healing takes time. But this is your moment to show who you truly are." Hyun-woo nodded slowly, the weight of his past mistakes heavy on his shoulders, but the flicker of hope in his heart growing stronger. As the guests watched, a new chapter began. A story of forgiveness, redemption, and the possibility of love renewed. But beneath the surface, questions lingered. Would Hyun-woo's transformation be genuine and lasting? Could So-young trust him again? And most importantly, could their family survive the scars of the past? So-young sat in the softly lit nursery, the gentle hum of the city outside a distant reminder of the world beyond these walls. Her hands rested lightly on her swollen belly, feeling the faint flutter of life within. The twins, a miracle that had defied every expectation. Yet, beneath the joy was a growing uncertainty. Would Hyun-woo truly change? Could he embrace this new chapter with the sincerity it demanded? The door creaked open, and Hyun-woo stepped inside, his usual confident demeanor tempered by a vulnerability that was almost foreign to him. He closed the door gently behind him and approached So-young, sitting beside her with a tentative smile. "I've been thinking," he began softly, his voice thick with emotion, "about everything, about how I treated you, how I pushed you away." So-young looked up, her eyes searching his face for the truth beneath the words. "And," Hyun-woo sighed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration and regret. "I was blind. I let my pride and fear control me. But now I want to be better, not just for the twins, but for you, for us." Tears welled in So-young's eyes, a mixture of relief and cautious hope. "Actions speak louder than words, Hyun-woo. If you want to rebuild this family, you have to show it every day." He nodded, determination flickering in his gaze. "I will. I promise." Their conversation was interrupted by the soft cries of a nurse outside, a reminder that the time was drawing near. So-young smiled weakly, feeling a surge of nervous excitement. The babies would soon be here, and with them, a new beginning. As the weeks passed, Hyun-woo's presence in So-young's life shifted from distant to involved. He attended medical appointments, helped prepare the nursery, and began to rebuild the bridges he had burned. But the wounds ran deep, and trust had to be earned. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, So-young spoke quietly, her voice carrying the weight of her fears. "I'm scared, Hyun-woo. Scared that this time, things won't be different." He took her hands in his grip firm yet gentle. "I know, and I don't expect forgiveness overnight. But I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." The silence between them was filled with unspoken promises and tentative hopes. Yet, lurking beneath the surface was a shadow, the question of whether their love, once fractured and bruised, could truly heal. And then, one afternoon, a letter arrived. The envelope was plain, but the handwriting unmistakable. So-young opened it with trembling hands, the words inside hitting her like a thunderclap. It was from Hyun-woo's estranged father, a man whose absence had cast a long shadow over the family. The letter spoke of inheritance, of the empire's future, and a demand that Hyun-woo prove himself worthy not just as a businessman, but as a son and a man. The challenges ahead were more than just personal. They were battles that would test every part of their fragile reunion. As So-young folded the letter, her heart pounded with a mixture of fear and resolve. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with obstacles that could either break them or bind them stronger than ever. He stopped, staring out the window at the sprawling city below, feeling the gulf between his ambitions and the fractured life he had tried to rebuild with So-young. The promise he made to her, to be better, to be present, was tested by forces far beyond their personal struggles. The knock at the door was soft but insistent. Jumi stepped in, her eyes sharp and full of concern. "Hyun-woo, you've been distant lately. What's going on?" He hesitated, then held out the letter. "It's from my father. He's demanding I prove myself, prove I'm worthy to inherit the company." Jumi read the letter quickly, her brow furrowing. "This isn't just about business. It's about power, control." Hyun-woo nodded, frustration simmering beneath his calm exterior. "I'm caught between two worlds, the man I want to be for So-young and the son my father expects me to be." Jumi's gaze softened. "You have to decide what kind of man you want to be, not just for them, but for yourself." Meanwhile, So-young sat in the nursery, gently rocking one of the twins in her arms. The soft coos and breaths of the baby were a balm to her weary soul, a reminder of hope and new beginnings. But her heart ached for Hyun-woo, knowing the battles he faced outside these walls. That evening, when Hyun-woo returned home, So-young greeted him with a tentative smile, the twins asleep in their cribs nearby. "Hyun-woo," she began, "I know this is hard, but we're in this together. Whatever comes, we face it as a family." He reached out, taking her hand in his, the gesture fragile but full of meaning. "I don't want to lose you again. I'll fight for us, for our children. But I need your strength too." Tears shimmered in So-young's eyes. "You have it, always." The next weeks were a battle on many fronts. Hyun-woo faced ruthless board meetings, family expectations, and the haunting ghosts of past mistakes. Yet, with each challenge, he returned home to So-young and the twins, drawing strength from their love and the fragile hope they represented. But just as things began to settle, a new obstacle appeared. Rumors spread in the business world about a rival aiming to undermine Hyun-woo's position. The tension tightened around them like a noose, threatening to unravel the fragile peace they had fought so hard to build. One night, as the city lights twinkled outside their bedroom window, Hyun-woo confided in So-young. "They're trying to take everything from me," he said, voice low and weary. "The company, my family's legacy, even you and the babies. I don't know how much longer I can hold on." So-young pressed her forehead against his, whispering, "You're not alone. We're here. We'll fight together. The battle ahead was daunting, the stakes higher than ever. But within the storm, a fierce love burned, resilient, unyielding, and ready to face whatever fate had in store. Jumi stepped inside, her eyes warm but determined. I heard what's been happening, So-young. The business pressures, the threats. You don't have to face this alone. So-young managed a tired smile, the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. Thank you, Jumi. It means more than you know. They sat together in the sunlit living room, the sounds of the twins playing softly in the next room a comforting backdrop. Jumi's presence was a balm, a reminder that family could be more than just blood. It could be a chosen bond forged through shared struggles. I've been thinking, Jumi began, her voice steady. Maybe it's time for us to take a stand, not just for Hyunwoo, but for you and the children. You deserve to be seen and protected. So-young nodded, hope flickering in her eyes. But how? The business world is ruthless. And Hyunwoo, he's under so much pressure. Jumi's gaze hardened with resolve. Then we make sure he has the support he needs. I'm going to speak with some allies, people who want to see your family thrive, not fall apart. As they planned, the days grew heavier with tension. Hyunwoo faced more aggressive moves from his rivals. Whispers of scandal, attempts to sway shareholders, and unexpected betrayals from within his own circle. Yet, amid the storm, So-young's newfound strength shone brighter. One evening, as Hyunwoo returned home late, exhausted and battle-worn, he found So-young waiting, a quiet determination in her eyes. "You're not alone in this," she said softly, stepping forward to take his hand. "We have people who want to help. We have Jumi, and together, we can fight." Hyunwoo's expression softened, gratitude mixing with relief. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Their moment was interrupted by the sudden ringing of the phone. Hyunwoo answered swiftly, his face paling as he listened. "It's them," he whispered, voice tense. "They're moving faster than we thought." So-young's heart raced, the reality of their situation crashing down. The battle was no longer just about business, it was about survival. Days turned into nights filled with strategy meetings, whispered conversations, and plans to outmaneuver their adversaries. Jumi worked tirelessly behind the scenes, rallying support, while So-young stood as a pillar of calm and strength for Hyunwoo. In the quiet moments, when the world outside faded, they found solace in each other's arms. The love they shared a shield against the chaos. Yet, the question lingered like a shadow. Would their combined strength be enough to withstand the storm gathering at their doorstep? And what sacrifices would they have to make to protect the family they fought so desperately to save? Hyunwoo, too, was changing, but not without struggle. The battles in the boardroom and in his family's legacy were relentless. Yet when he returned home, he found a different kind of challenge, rebuilding the trust and love he had once destroyed. One afternoon, as sunlight spilled through the large windows of their home, So-young sat with her twins nestled in her arms, their gentle breaths a soothing melody. Hyunwoo entered quietly, watching her with a mixture of awe and regret. "Do you remember when we first met?" he asked softly, pulling up a chair beside her. So-young looked up, a small smile playing on her lips despite the ache in her heart. "How could I forget? You were so stubborn, so sure you knew everything." Hyunwoo chuckled, the sound rough with emotion. "And you were so patient, even when I didn't deserve it." She reached out, touching his hand gently. "We both made mistakes, but the important thing is what we do now." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I want to be the man you deserve, the father our children need. But I'm afraid that the past will always haunt us." So-young's gaze was steady, filled with fierce determination. "Fear is natural, but we can't let it control us. We have to choose love, trust, and forgiveness, for ourselves and for our family." Their conversation was interrupted by the soft cooing of the twins, a reminder of the life they had created together against all odds. In that moment, the possibility of healing seemed within reach, fragile but real. Yet, beyond their walls, the pressures of the business world and family expectations loomed large. The fight to secure their future was far from over, and the scars of past betrayals still throbbed beneath the surface. One evening, as they prepared for a quiet dinner, Hyunwoo received a call that would shake their fragile peace. The voice on the other end was cold, calculating, a reminder that their enemies had not forgotten. "They're escalating," Hyunwoo said grimly after ending the call. "They want to take everything, even you and the children." So-young's hand found his, a silent vow passing between them. "Then we fight, together." As the night deepened, the house was filled with a new energy, a blend of love, fear, and unyielding courage. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and doubt, but they faced it united. Hyunwoo stood at the altar, impeccably dressed but his eyes distant, shadowed by the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future. Minji was radiant, her smile perfect but tinged with nervousness. The room buzzed with excitement, but So-young's presence would soon shift the tide. The doors opened quietly at first, then the murmurs rose as So-young stepped in, her figure calm and poised, her hands gently cradling the twins. She moved with a grace that commanded attention, not as a victim, but as a woman reborn. Eyes turned, whispers rippled through the crowd, and Hyunwoo's heart seized at the sight of her. The woman he had wronged, now standing tall and unyielding before them all. The twins, symbols of a love he had tried to deny, were the undeniable proof of a bond that refused to be broken. So-young, Hyunwoo's voice trembled as he approached her. "What are you doing here?" She met his gaze steadily, the fire in her eyes unmistakable. "I'm here to remind you, and everyone, that our story isn't over. These children are ours, and I am not the woman you cast aside." The room held its breath, the tension palpable. Minji's smile faltered, confusion and hurt flashing across her face. Guests exchanged shocked glances, the evening's glamour overshadowed by the unfolding drama. Jumi stepped forward, her voice clear and resolute. "So-young's strength is a testament to the truth. We stand with her." Hyunwoo's hands shook as he reached out, conflicted emotions raging within. Shame, regret, and a desperate hope battled for dominance. I was wrong," he whispered, the admission of fracture in his carefully maintained facade. "I never meant to hurt you." So-young's response was firm but filled with compassion. "Words are not enough, Hyunwoo. Healing requires more." As the ceremony paused, the eyes of the world upon them, an unspoken challenge hung heavy. Could they rebuild what was broken? Could love triumph over pain and betrayal? The night stretched before them, full of promise and peril, where every choice would shape the destiny of their fragile family. His voice trembled as he took a tentative step toward her, the room falling into a hush that made every breath feel like a thunderclap. "So-young, I never meant to hurt you," he said, his words barely above a whisper, raw with sincerity and remorse. She looked at him, the fire in her eyes softening just enough to reveal the scars beneath. "You did hurt me, Hyunwoo, deeply, but I'm here not to dwell on the past, but to face the future. Our children deserve that much." The crowd watched, captivated by the fragile dance unfolding between them. A dance of pain and forgiveness, of past wounds and the tentative hope of healing. Minji's radiant smile had faded into a mask of uncertainty, her gaze flickering between Hyunwoo and So-young, caught in the shifting tides of their story. Jumi stepped forward, her voice ringing clear and unwavering. "So-young's courage has shown us all the truth. We stand with her, with the family that has survived against all odds." Hyunwoo's hands shook as he reached out, his eyes pleading for a chance to make amends. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm willing to fight for it. For you, for our children." So-young's gaze held his, the weight of years and the promise of tomorrow intertwined. Forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. If you truly want to change, then prove it, not just with words, but with actions. The room held its breath as Hyunwoo nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges that would test the strength of their love and the resilience of their family. But in that moment, surrounded by those who bore witness to their story, a fragile hope blossomed. a hope that love, even scarred and battered, could find its way back to light. As the guests slowly began to whisper and shift, the ceremony resumed, transformed by the raw, unfiltered truth of a family reborn through courage, forgiveness, and the unbreakable bonds of love. So-young's gaze was steady, unwavering. "You lost me the moment you stopped seeing me, not just as your wife but as a person. I was invisible to you, Hyun-woo, and that hurt far more than any words." The twins stirred gently in her arms, their innocent faces a stark contrast to the storm of emotions swirling around them. She looked down at them, then back up at him. "They don't need a father who is absent in body and soul. They need someone who will be there, who will love and protect them." Hyun-woo swallowed hard, the realization cutting deep. "I was blinded by pride and fear. I thought I had to be perfect, to be strong at all times. But I was just afraid of failing you, of failing them." The room was silent, the guests holding their breath as the two stood locked in this vulnerable exchange. So-young's voice softened, carrying a mix of hope and caution. "It's not about being perfect, Hyun-woo. It's about being real, about being present." He took a tentative step closer, reaching out but stopping short of touching her. "Can you find it in your heart to give me a chance? To rebuild what we've broken?" Tears welled in So-young's eyes, the ache of past wounds mingling with the flicker of hope she dared to nurture. "It will take time. Trust isn't something that returns overnight." Hyun-woo nodded solemnly. "I'm willing to wait, to fight, for us." Their hands finally met, fingers entwining in a fragile promise. Around them, the room seemed to exhale, the tension easing into a quiet warmth. Jumi stepped forward, her smile radiant with pride. "This is just the beginning. The journey ahead won't be easy, but with courage and love, it can be a beautiful one." So-young looked out at the faces surrounding her, the family, the friends, the witnesses to their story, and felt a surge of strength. The past was behind them, a chapter closed but never forgotten. The future lay ahead, uncertain but filled with possibility. One evening, alone in his study, Hyun-woo stared at a faded photograph of So-young and himself from happier times. His fingers traced the outlines of their smiling faces, but the image felt distant, like a memory from another life. The quiet ache in his chest was a constant reminder of all he had lost. "So much time wasted," he murmured to himself. "How did I let it come to this?" The door creaked open softly, and So-young entered, her presence gentle but resolute. She approached, her eyes reflecting both sorrow and hope. "Hyun-woo," she said softly, taking a seat beside him. "You've been quiet lately." He sighed deeply, the weight of his guilt pressing down. "I'm scared, So-young. Scared that my mistakes have broken us beyond repair. That the man I was is all you'll ever remember." She reached out, placing her hand over his. "I remember the man you can be, the man you're becoming. Change isn't easy, and the past doesn't disappear overnight. But I believe in us." His voice cracked, vulnerability seeping through. "I want to be worthy of your trust, of our children's love. But sometimes I wonder if it's too late." So-young's eyes glistened with tears, but her smile was steady. "It's never too late to try, but you have to be patient. With me, with yourself." Their conversation lingered into the night, a delicate dance of confession and comfort. Hyun-woo vowed silently to shed the pride that had blinded him and embrace the humility required to rebuild their family. In the days that followed, he sought to prove his commitment, not just with grand gestures but in the quiet moments. Helping with the twins, listening to So-young's fears, and facing the challenges of the business world with newfound humility. Yet, the road to redemption was fraught with setbacks. Old wounds surfaced, and whispers of past betrayals threatened to unravel the fragile threads of trust. Hyun-woo's struggle was not just against external enemies, but against the doubts that lingered within his own heart. One afternoon, Jumi found Hyun-woo in the garden, his posture heavy with exhaustion. She approached gently. "You're carrying a lot," she said. "Don't forget you're not alone." He looked up, a weary smile breaking through. "Thank you, Jumi." for believing in me when I struggled to believe in myself. As the sun set, casting long shadows over the estate, Hyunwoo and Soyoung stood together, two souls scarred but united, ready to face the uncertainties ahead. Jumi reached out, gently clasping Soyoung's hand. "You've come so far," she said softly, her voice steady. "But I know there are still battles you carry inside." Soyoung nodded, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "It's not just about the past with Hyunwoo. It's everything, the betrayal, the humiliation, the years lost. Sometimes I wonder if the scars will ever truly fade." Jumi's gaze was fierce with empathy. "Scars tell our story, Soyoung. They show how much we've endured. But they don't define us. You define yourself." The conversation lingered in the warm afternoon light, a moment of connection that held the weight of unspoken pain and the fragile promise of healing. Soyoung took a deep breath, gathering the strength to voice what had long been buried. "I'm scared," she confessed, voice trembling. "Scared that no matter how much we try, the past will always haunt us. That the people who hurt me, the people who hurt us, will find a way to tear us apart again." Jumi squeezed her hand, unwavering. "You're stronger than you know, and you're not alone. Hyunwoo is trying too, despite his flaws. But you have to hold on to that hope. For yourself, for your children." The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows that stretched across the garden. Soyoung's gaze drifted to the horizon, where light and darkness met in a delicate balance. The future was uncertain, a path fraught with risks and the ghosts of the past, yet also illuminated by the possibility of renewal. Just then, Hyunwoo approached, his expression softening as he joined them. "I overheard," he said quietly. "I know I can't erase the pain I caused, but I want to be better. For you, for our family." Soyoung looked up, meeting his eyes, a mirror of vulnerability and tentative hope. "Actions speak louder than words, Hyunwoo, but I'm willing to believe, if you're willing to prove it." He nodded, determination flickering in his gaze. "I will, every day." As the evening breeze whispered through the trees, they sat together, a family bruised but unbroken, holding on to each other against the uncertain tides ahead. Yet, lurking beneath the surface was a question neither dared voice aloud. Could love truly heal the deepest wounds? Or would the past shadows rise again to claim them? Hyunwoo entered quietly, pausing at the doorway as he watched her. The weight of their shared history hung heavy between them, unspoken yet palpable. He took a hesitant step forward, his voice barely more than a whisper. "Soyoung, I want to apologize. Again, for everything. For the pain, the silence, the distance." She looked up, her eyes reflecting the flickering candlelight, shimmering with unshed tears. "It wasn't just silence, Hyunwoo. It was neglect, abandonment. But I see you trying now, and that means something." His fingers brushed a stray lock of hair from her face, a tender gesture that spoke of longing and regret. "I'm afraid," he admitted, voice trembling. "Afraid that I won't be enough for you, for our children. That the past will always haunt us." She reached out, taking his hand in hers, grounding both of them. "We're not perfect, Hyunwoo, but love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing each other every day, despite the fears and the flaws." Their eyes locked, the unspoken promise of a future filled with both challenges and possibilities hanging in the air. Yet, even as they found solace in each other's presence, a shadow lingered, the looming threat from those who sought to tear them apart, to undo the fragile peace they had fought to build. One afternoon, a mysterious letter arrived, its contents cryptic but chilling. Hyunwoo's hands trembled as he read the threats disguised as warnings, a stark reminder that the battle for their family's survival was far from over. "Soyoung," he said gravely, handing her the letter. "They're not done with us." She read the words carefully, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and fierce determination. "Then we'll face them, together." That night, as the twins slept peacefully, Soyoung and Hyunwoo sat side by side, their hands intertwined, a united front against the storm gathering beyond their walls. Hyunwoo entered quietly, his footsteps soft on the hardwood floor. He paused behind her, wrapping his arms gently around her waist, offering a comfort born of shared struggles and unspoken promises. "We've come so far," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm still not sure I deserve all of this." So-young leaned into him, her heart steady and sure. "None of us are perfect, Hyun-woo, but we're here together. That's what matters." He sighed, a deep, cleansing breath that seemed to carry away years of regret. "I've learned that love isn't about never falling. It's about getting up, again and again." Tears slipped down her cheeks, the weight of the journey breaking through her defenses. "I'm proud of us, of what we've become." Their moment was interrupted by the soft cries of the twins, awakening from their slumber. So-young smiled, reaching for them with a tenderness that spoke of new beginnings. As she cradled them close, Hyun-woo watched, the fierce protectiveness in his eyes a promise to guard this fragile happiness against any storm. Later, as the sun rose higher, casting golden light into their home, the family gathered in the garden. Laughter and joy echoed where once there was silence and sorrow, a testament to resilience and the power of forgiveness. Yet, beneath the surface of this newfound happiness, the world remained unpredictable. Challenges would come, shadows would lurk, but they faced them not as broken souls, but as a family united by